Good evening and welcome to my daily live session on some topic from my toolkit for execution excellence. So, before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Dinakar. I'm the founder of Samutana and the inventor of DoHow, a methodology for enabling teams achieve challenging goals and, in doing so, develop leadership and management skills. So we basically look at starting with the goals, which could be something to do with sales, something to do with on time and full delivery, something to do with improvement in OEE, which is overall equipment effectiveness, or reduction in inventory, or it could be something to do with improvement in profitability, reduction in the turnaround times, lead times, improvement in utilization, improvement in productivity. Could be any goal, and using that goal, we then get teams to work on achieving this goal. As they do that, using the DoHo methodology, we develop leadership, which is all about people, and management, which is all about systems. And management is about efficiency, leadership is about effectiveness, management is about doing the right thing and doing the thing right, and leadership is about doing the right thing. So it's about the efficiency and effectiveness, and that's what people learn as they use our methodologies to achieve a particular goal. So in this kind of a development, unlike the standard conventional programs, we don't just like that talk about teaching leadership or management skills. Ours is 100% hands-on program, 100% on the problem which you have. You solve the problem. As you solve the problem, you develop your leadership and management skills. That's the very brief introduction of what I do. With that, I would invite you to visit my website, dinakarmurthy.com, in case you want to know a little more detail, or you can always write a mail to me. My email is dinakar@samutana.com. So, with that very brief introduction, let me directly jump into today's topic, which is the cons and negatives of DIN-A3 presentation. First thing is, see, DIN A3 presentation talks about presenting a topic, be it a project proposal for approval, it could be the problem solving which was done, or it could be something to do with the acquisition of a new customer, it could be something to do with uh, pitching for a new customer, it could be something to do with expansion of sales, it could be something to do with expansion of territories, it could be something to do with improvement in the profitability, a project to improve the reduce the product cost using wave value analysis and value engineering. Could be anything, and the basic idea is you put it on a DIN A3 size where the four topics are addressed. First is the context. What is the context which we are addressing? Then what is the reality of that particular context, and then comes the analysis, which talks about what kind of data have you analyzed, what kind of situation and what kind of facts, what kind of information has been analyzed, and what kind of an understanding is there of the cause and effect, and finally a proposal of the solution for this particular problem. It could be that you buy a machine, could be a proposal, it could be to decide and pitch into a different territory, could be something to do with trying to look at a particular measure for product cost reduction. It could be to restructuring the fixed cost. It could be to restructuring your departments, organizational change. It could be anything. Now, when these four quadrants are filled up, context, reality, analysis, and proposal, one would really get the gist of whatever that is being presented in a very, very concise manner. That's what DIN A3 presentation is all about, mainly because all the top managers are extremely busy, they don't have time. So they need to get the hang of what's happening and then be able to take a decision based on facts. Now, to be able to use DIN A3 presentation, one of the big barriers is that the audience whom you are presenting the DIN A3 need to know the context and the problem solving methods well. If they are not aware of that, if suppose you say that, look, in the analysis part of it, I said I did a project payback calculation and NPV is minus 20 million rupees and IRR is let us say minus 0 or minus 0.4, 0.5%, and payback period is infinity, because when you have an NPV of minus NPV then and the IRR of negative value, then the payback is not there at all. You're basically going to spend more money. Now, these three data, and other case you could have a situation where the payback period is 3 years, whereas the IRR is only about 1%, and the net present value will be maybe about plus 20,000 rupees, for example. Now, one should be able to understand what are these numbers and what is the tool that was used. In this case, a payback period, or let us say somebody talks about the Six Sigma value of a particular process, then the person should know about Six Sigma. Or somebody is talking about the profitability or the contribution margin for. There are multiple contribution margins when you look at the contribution margin concept of analyzing the cost and analyzing the profitability. Let's say the contribution margin for is 20%. What does that mean? So one should really know when you're trying to go to a new market or a new customer, or the contribution margin is only 2%, for example. Is it worthwhile going there or not? The contribution margin for would talk about coverage of all the costs, except it's something similar to EBITDA. Would you like to go in gross margin over all costs is what contribution margin 4 is all about. Would you like to go and pitch to the customer, or is it worthwhile not to do it at all? These decisions to be taken, one needs to be thorough with the tools. That's the first negative. So if you're trying to pitch to an audience who is not aware of the various methods and tools used in business, then DINA3 presentation may not work. The next one is, see, when you are trying to do DINA3 presentation, I said that there is a lot of filtering required, a lot of refining required. So in doing that, many a time some of the details may be missed out. I'll tell you a classic case is in the project management, where in the product development, one would miss out the key details of what measurements was done. If suppose for a particular product there are 800 characteristics, out of 800 characteristics, let us say 797 characteristics were all okay, there is no problem at all, and only the 3 characteristics had a issue. So when you're doing a DINA3 presentation, you may not be able to portray the details of all the 797 characteristics and the 800 characteristics. That may not be possible at all in the amount of size you have got. But the information of the 3 characteristics which are not okay could be fatal. It could be something to do with a crack which occurred during the development phase, which then causes a disaster in the field later when the product gets cracked in the field. Or it could be something to do with a particular radius which was not achieved, and that radius could result into additional fatigue, and that fatigue could result into a crack, and then the product would fail. So these are the things which one needs to consider, which can get slipped out when you are looking at a DINA3 presentation. So it's important that the guy who's looking at the DINA3 presentation is able to ask the right questions and then be able to deep dive where it is required, so that the right information is pulled out. Again, the audience need to be competent for the DINA3 presentation to work. And the last one, to really prepare a DINA3 presentation itself, one needs to go through multiple rounds of iteration to be able to continuously keep refining and keep compacting the information, and keep only picking that information which is relevant for the presentation, so that it gets extremely focused. So that process itself could take some time, though it is something which is very what should I say, good in terms of the learning aspect of the entire process. The time taken to arrive at a DIN-A3 presentation could take a long time unless the person gets fully trained. That is the next disadvantage which one would really land into a lot of time. So you may not have sufficient time. So you try to condense something which is not the right one to be condensed, and after that the presentation will not go through. So you need to have multiple rounds of meaningful condensing which is needed. So now let me talk about the mitigation measures for all these 3 negatives. First is, audience wants to know the context and the problem solving methods well. Therefore, use DIN-A3 presentation only inside companies. It's not for public presentation. Inside companies, there are some tools, there are some cultures, there are some ways of visualization. So only use it for in-company presentations. That is number 1. Number 2, important details may be missed out, and for that to be resolved, make sure that the ones whom you are presenting to are experts. At least there is 1 or 2 experts in the audience, and if the expert is there, he will be able to find out what question has to be asked, so that the proposal is more rock solid. See, it's quite interesting. See, I said about these 3 characteristics during the product development which get basically hidden for whatever reason, right? People want to succeed. So 797 was good. For example, in manufacturing, I was today with one company where they had a problem of achieving good throughput. and they have a problem of missing components. And this is a big disease. I can't understand why it happened, but it is very true. The supply chain guys in India, only in the Indian context. I've worked in Germany for a long time, in Brazil for a long time. Brazil also to some extent lean towards India, but Germany never is the case that the guy will come and tell me that, look, I've done a tremendous amount of jobs, sir, 99% of the parts are ready. That's absolutely ridiculous. Whereas in the Indian context, the managers would expect a praise pat in the back when 99% of the parts are ready for the assembly, 1% is missing. And that is something which is extremely critical, because that 1% is the one which is going to be the life-saving one. Similarly, in the case of development, if the three characteristics which you didn't really report or didn't really talk about in the DINA3 presentation could be crucial, could be life-saving. Therefore, it's important to have experts in the audience. That is going to mitigate the second problem. And the third problem is something which can be mitigated if you start practicing the DINA3 presentation and keep doing it quite regularly. Then you get the hang of it, you develop the skill. Doing that, you would not have a problem in condensing and putting the entire ideas into a smaller space, so that you can make presentations and make really the audience excited with what your ideas are, what your thoughts are. So with that, thanks a lot for watching. For those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead. See you both tomorrow at 8:30. Tomorrow my topic would be pros and positives of DINA3 presentation, which is something very nice to hear. Let me talk about that. It's a fantastic tool. Again, only for in-company usage, not for public usage. Thanks a lot and goodbye.